Greetings. Welcome to Interesting Ideas. I'm Stan Houston. We're here to help you with some insight, perhaps some influence, making an impact, and how about a source of true and ongoing income? Well, that's what Interesting Ideas is all about. And one of the things I often teach people is if you want to have a good radio program, bring things together that don't seem like they should go together. Many of you have heard of the top-selling song in the United States today. Singer John Rich, Santa Claus got a dirty job. Well, many of us have heard about that. It's been reported all around. Mike Rowe is part of the players in that, and he's helping people with dirty jobs. And then that led to an interesting idea. Do you know that it could be that welding and worship are what really hold the world together in these troubling and tested times? I think that's true. If you'll stay tuned, we'll tell you more. It is, I believe, an interesting idea. It is Wednesday, it is the 8th of December, and we're pressing on. Now, as we begin this program, once again, we are asking you to join us to help us make this a significant program, not because it would be good for me, but it could be good for you and for lots of people. We want you to participate in the program. We want you to share your interesting ideas, your inventions, your innovations. Maybe it's a little bit crazy, but most things that are now vital to our world, somebody thought at one time, in fact, many people thought were crazy. So we don't discount crazy ideas, but make them interesting. Hold our attention. Well, let's see if I can kind of illustrate that a little bit today, and you can decide if you would like to be involved in interesting ideas. The song, and I don't like the song, it's kind of a crazy song, but millions of people are downloading Santa Claus Got a Dirty Job. Santa Claus got a dirty job. And when I'm listening to my favorite Christmas songs, that's never going to be one of them. I guess I'm a bit old-fashioned. I listen to a lot of the old classic and traditional songs. At this time of the year, I love to have a kind of Pandora on the background, and they allow me to have a choice not only of Christmas songs, but all kinds of different kinds of Christmas songs, which tells you a lot about the world today. If you are a radio station trying to be in the Christmas music spirit, and obviously many are, the problem is, what kind of Christmas music are you going to have? Because there are all kinds of Christmas music. Well, Pandora, they do that by simply saying is we've got about 9 different channels. Take your pick. And you can do everything from rap Christmas music to soul Christmas music to country, western and music and cowboy Christmas music, and very classical and traditional and show tune Christmas music. Yep. You take your choice of the channel that you want, and you can just listen exactly when you want to the music you want to hear. And that's why traditional radio is going to have a hard time surviving, because I can listen only to the Christmas music I want and when I want, and all I have to do is press a button, and there it is, right for me. That's why the business of radio is changing so profoundly. Both radio and television are dealing with the streaming on-demand phenomenon. And by the way, that's going to affect your marketing, your advertising, and the way you do business today. Okay, now segue all of that into this. Many of us have heard of Mike Rowe, and I love his podcast, Well, the way I heard it was, And he does a great job on his weekly podcast, and I listen to it just like millions of other people who do the same thing. And he has the luxury of doing it whenever he wants to. He puts it on the air, and it can be there anywhere, anytime, any place, on any device, and people can hear it. It's remarkable. Of course, he's made his mark in actually highlighting people who really do dirty jobs. There are just so many jobs. And of course, it seems that not only are they dirty, but interestingly enough, some of them pay quite well. And the reason they pay quite well is because they're dirty jobs. Nobody wants to do them. And the man or woman who is willing to have the courage and the conviction and the desire and the commitment and, most importantly, the resilience can oftentimes make a living. They may not love that job, but they can make a living, and maybe make a good living so they can do more of the things they really love, because they are willing to do a dirty job. And check Mike Rowe out. He is really an inspiration to many, many people, and particularly to our young people who have many times believed, and I'm almost going to call it the lie, that the only way you can be successful today and have a good job today is if you get a college degree. That's not true. It isn't. Of course, there are many things that would be best if you did have a college degree. We would like to believe that our doctors and people who build bridges are engineers. There are a number of people who, in effect, they need training and education. But it doesn't mean you have to spend 4 years in college and maybe go through $100,000 at the bare minimum to get that education. And I was also reminded, particularly as to what happened today, of our pastor's his son told him that he wasn't going to college. Well, the pastor, his daughter had gone to college, and he expected that his son would go to college. It turns out his son didn't like school, never did like school. And he said, well, what are your plans? And he said, I want to be an underwater welder. And he had discovered a place where he could go to learn how to be a combination deep sea diver and a welder. And that's what he did, and that's what he's doing, and he's loving the work. It's hard work. It's a very athletic work, and that fits him just fine because he's a strong, strapping young man. And as he said, I'm not going to do this forever. I probably can't, but I can do real well for a good long run, and then I can decide if I want to do something else. So he's an underwater welder, and he's been at it now for about 3 years, and he's doing far better than if he had taken a 3 to 4 year break for college. Of course, many of you understand that, but we don't want to fully realize that. And that's part of the story. Now let's segue. How did that work? Well, today on the Fox and Friends radio show, Mike Rowe brought in a very attractive woman, young woman, who was one of the top welders. She was a welder. And there are very, very few women who go into welding. Well, she decided to do that. And she says, I'm probably not the only woman welder in the world, but there aren't very many of them. And the story was how she got involved in that, what she did, how she liked it, and what her job was all about. And it actually turns out that she's a quality welder and is working on some very important projects in which it's not just, open the torch, weld something. It is truly a kind of a work of art to make sure the welds are so well done. And she's at that category. She is a master welder. And if you need welding that is more than just, paste it on and make it stick, she's the one. But she's also decided that the art of welding, and she says that word, it's an art. It's an art form. It's a skill, but it's an art form. And now she's actually branched into a bit of a hobby of how she creates works of art by welding things together. I just smiled the whole time I was watching that because it was so keen and clued to the things I want to tell people when it comes to being a creator, an enterpriser, an enterprise builder, even a leader. It's not about learning things. Learning is important. It's about learning to be useful. It's about learning to be practical. It's about learning to be helpful. It's about working hard. That's right, working hard. Not just working long, but working hard. Good work is oftentimes hard work. It's the kind of work that may have you emotionally tired, but very much you are physically tired from all of the energy and perhaps even some of those calories you had to burn, which may keep you, tough and slim and thin as you work hard. Well, are you with me so far? We're at 12 minutes, but I hope you will think about those things. And, as you're helping yourself and helping young men and women find a way. In fact, I've gone through the process of doing something I normally don't do, but I'm well informed about how to do it. Since we made a move, we've been putting all kinds of that inexpensive furniture together, and that's quite a lot of hard work. And I said to my wife, you know what? What they really ought to do when a kid goes to college, one of her first assignments is to give them an IKEA bed and a chest of drawers. But you know what? The first thing they have to do is they have to figure out how to put it together. So for all of you people in college, that's something maybe they ought to put on the curriculum. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas. We want you to participate with us and help us and play with us and maybe even make a good contribution to what it means to be a person with interesting ideas. Here's a break, but then we'll be back with the rest of the Hey, what does welding and worship have together? Well, here we're back. What Mike Rowe said, and he's such a smart guy. I mean, he is. He just makes me smile because he's tough and he's strong, but he's clever and he's got a way with words. But you know that he has worked hard and he knows how to put some words together. And here's a line that he used when he was describing this young woman. He said, you know what? You gotta have people who weld well because it's welding that holds everything together. And right off the bat, I just stopped and smiled. And I turned to my wife and said, he's got it. That's exactly right. Think about it now. What would happen if all of the welders quit welding? Think of all of the industries and buildings and things that need things that somebody has to weld pieces together. And they have to do it well. And they have to be good at it. And they have to do it in such a way that that bridge doesn't fall down. And we know that sometimes that does happen because somebody didn't weld well. So I loved that expression. But then it takes me back to my own life. Many years ago, when I was doing some research work at the BBC in preparation for being what I hope is helpful, how to be a world-class broadcaster. Now, I'm not claiming that I am, but it's always a bit of an aspiration. I'd like to be very good at what I do. I like to work hard at what I do, and I want to engage people. And I came across in the BBC archives a program that one of the bishops in Great Britain, one of the archbishops, had given on the BBC during World War II. And of course, during the world wars of the times, the BBC, along with things like the Voice of America, it was the source of information and freedom and real news that many people could get if they could get listening to the BBC. One of the things we discovered that when we lived in Holland, that part of the problem was for the people in Holland, you could literally go to jail, and you might even be executed if the Gestapo, if the authorities caught you listening to a BBC broadcast. Yeah, that happened. Well, here's what the bishop said. He said, "It is worship that keeps the world from flying apart. It's the fact that people worship the living God all around the world in all kinds of places and spaces. You don't know it. It's a bad mess, and it's a terrible mess, and it's liable to fall apart and blow apart, but it is worship and prayer that keeps the world from flying apart." Now that's an interesting idea. I oftentimes sought to remind people at our worship service, hey, thank you for helping to save the world. Your worship, your prayers, your listening to God's Word, your mere presence to one another. You may not think you're doing much, but you are. You're perhaps keeping the world from flying apart. Worship and welding. Kind of maybe a ritual that could go together. Thank God for welders and people who spend time doing that hard, sweaty, difficult work. Because so many things have to be put together. Without welding, things come apart. And without prayer and worship, just maybe, the world would fly apart too. But I believe that's true. And I hope that you will think about that as perhaps an interesting idea. Just 20 minutes. We'll be back. Please reach out to me, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. I have a video program called On the Edge. And again, if you want to talk about that, stanhouston@gmail.com. Here we are with interesting ideas. This is our podcast radio program from What It Takes Radio. And we do it in cooperation with what we call the Creator Enterprise. Creator Enterprise Project. That's the word we use a lot today. Not what job do you have, not where do you work, but what's your current project. That's an interesting idea. And we'll talk about that someday. So please reach out to me. And one of the things I'd love to hear is what you would like to talk about. And what I really want to hear is, do you have an interesting idea? And you think so, you know so, you may even believe so, or you maybe just want to try it out. I'd love to have you on the program because we can make that happen very easily. If you have a phone, you can easily be on our radio program. And we'll teach you how just to do that. And we can even teach you how to have your own radio program. That's what our problem, it's no problem. That's the problem we have solved, is that now you don't have to wait for someone to pick you to be on the radio. You can pick yourself and be on the radio. So check us out at witradio.net, witradio.net. We are a podcasting and publishing company, and we're going to help you build a platform so that you can reach your audience. Remember, everybody has an audience, and you need to reach them. Now, that's another interesting idea. So please do so, and please come back, because we'll be back, because there's always interesting people and interesting ideas to talk to, and we'd love to visit with you. Have a conversation, even a conversation that really counts, that really matters in this world today. Best and blessings for you, and bye for now.